let's take a look at this recently released Timex. A couple of days ago, I woke up and I had a notification in my email that this had been released. And within the first minute of waking up, I had ordered it. I wouldn't say I'm a huge, mega Timex fan, but, as a kid, I had a whole bunch of them over the years. And I have a handful of them now. And so I do like the brand. For the longest time, they were known for making cheap watches. I still think they make budget watches. But they have stepped things up a little. I would say the past 2 or 3 years, they've gone from making mostly, let's say, $50 watches to somewhere between 150 and 200, and I think they're quite nice. I wouldn't say materials, spec-wise, they're top-notch, but I do think design is really impressive. I'm wearing my other Timex Waterbury. I think they call this the Dive Chronograph, and I just love that coloring. I think it's a very fun watch, especially for the price. Cool little summer watch. So let's get this guy on first, see what it looks like, and then we can talk a little bit about it first. Oh, it's called the 1972, I think just the 1972 Timex World Timer. They might give it a better name than that. But I know it includes 1972 because it's a reissue of a watch that was out in 1972. It seems like that original watch wasn't super common, but it was sold in Europe or maybe just France. It was under the Timex Electric line of watches. Let me zoom in here so you get to see. Yeah. I spent some time looking for the pictures of the original online, and I was able to find them. And this watch looks very accurate to the original. Pretty sure this is a 39 millimeter. I think I measured it to be 38 and a half millimeters. So, and I think that's the size of the original. And it looks pretty spot on. I think they did a pretty good job at recreating that original watch. Now, I think that's the upside and the downside to this watch. They, as in, the downside is on some places they were so faithful to the original that, well, maybe they should have changed it. And also there's a couple of places where they missed the original watch. First, let me just talk about how the design in this watch, I truly like it. I think black, white, and red is a fantastic color combination. And this one is stark. It stands out. There's really no other watch that looks quite like this. I did own a Swatch, a 1984 Swatch that I really liked that I had to get rid of because it was just too loud. But it had this sort of, just really funky design, black and white, but it's very, very bold. You can see the lume is, I don't know if that's intentionally designed to look aged or not, or if it's just slightly beige, but there's a healthy amount of lume on here. Let's see, I have this light. We can get a little darker. Yeah. That's about as good as I can get, but a healthy dose of that applied. A Timex is not going to win any lume wars anytime soon. It's obviously a quartz watch, as you can see. So the crown is really tiny, but that's kind of okay on a quartz watch, right? That's an acrylic crystal with a really nice dome, really nice distortion. That's going to scratch easily, but it's going to polish out easily. We have stainless steel high polish case. This bezel, pretty sure that's metal, and actually, I can't tell. It's either a super strong hard plastic or it is metal that's like IP coated, and it's a friction bezel, which makes sense for a world timer. I'll get into how that works. I think it's very straightforward, easy to use, has these nice grips. Normally I'm not a fan of leather, and I probably, when I wear this, will wear it on a mesh, but this leather was made by SB Foot Tanning Co. in Red Wing, Minnesota. That's strange because it did have a sticker on here that said Strap China, Movement Japan, I think. Yeah, and you can see assembled in China, water resist 50 meter. You have the nice little hatch here for easy battery changes. Yeah, design-wise, I really like it. Looking at the original, though, I do think they made just It's small, but I think these are the little details that really stand out to me. Maybe I'll use a screwdriver as a pointer. This trapezoidal date window here, which I think is really, really nice. The original, this date window was just maybe 2 millimeters that way. It's supposed to rest perfectly in this white ring, and it's just supposed to look perfectly integrated. I'm not too sure why, but on this model, it's like 1 or 2 millimeters too far to the right, and so it sticks out here. And you see that's unbroken. The original, it had just a tiny little bit of white here and just a tiny here. I imagine why is that that's heavily dictated by the movement that's available to them. You can't just put a date window anywhere. You really have to pick a different movement that has the date wheel in a specific location. But that is a little bit of a bummer that this reissue just has that a little bit further out. It sounds like it's nitpicking, but I think when you look at the original, you can see what the original designers of this watch were trying to do. And I think when they made this reissue, they did their best at trying to recreate it. Likewise, small details, but the hour hand, you see it extends into this border. The original, and I know this sounds nitpicky, but I think these sort of things for legibility, they matter. I've noticed a lot of older watches, they really care about the lengths of the hands, where those hands are clearly pointing to something. And in that original, this point here was perfectly aligned with the outside of this. And so it really clearly looked like it was pointing at the hour markers. You see here, it kind of extends into that white track a bit. Hardly the end of the world, right? You can see also on the minute hand, it just sticks a little bit too far out into that black area. And the original, they're spot on. It's a little attention to detail, but I really like it when companies get that right. When the hour hand points at the hours and the minute hand points at the minute track. And likewise, I think the second hand, they nailed it on this. You see, it's just the perfect length, and it's hitting its indices really, really well. I think they got that right. That's some nitpicking. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to notice that, right? It's not going to matter. Again, this strap is going to break in. I think this is going to look great. Now on to the thing that everyone's talking about, or anyone who's talking about this watch is talking about, this bezel. It's a world timer bezel, but a 12-hour one. And I'd never seen that before. But once you do see it and you get used to it, you realize, hey, that's not so bad. It's interestingly done. So I think the way you do it, right, there's no GMT hand, there's no 24-hour hand, but there are 24 time zones. So each of these 12 areas are doubled up. So I'm in the Eastern time zones. I see this, the city of New York is also an Eastern time zone. I can match that up with the hour that I'm in now. And you can see I can go minus an hour, and Chicago's an hour behind. So that's going to be, it's going to be 1:44, whereas it's 2:44 in New York. Mexico is going to be 2 hours back. So you can see the minus, you keep on going that way. And plus is 24 hours ahead. So it's 2:44, almost 2:45 in Singapore. At least it would be if this bezel was accurate. They reissued this watch, and all those markers are identical to the original watch. And time zones change. Time zones are not geographic, they're political. If a nation, or even a part of a nation, a single city says, no, we're tracking this time zone now, well, then it's tracking that time zone. They don't need world approval or anything. And so these time zones are aligned with 1972 boundaries. Now, for me, that's not going to matter too much. Let's go to this. So, London is 5 hours ahead of the Eastern time zone. I'm pretty sure all of these most of these work for, let's say, if you're in the US to Europe, I think that's fine. But some of the time zones on here have since changed. Yeah, Honolulu doesn't track daylight saving time. So half of the year that's going to be off. Some other people are pointing out that I think it's Karachi and Delhi they're in some half-hour time zone, which isn't accurately reflected on this. So it's a cool design. I like the idea of a 12-hour world timer bezel, but if you're a world traveler, I wouldn't rely on this watch. If you're interested in this watch more so for being a faithful recreation of the original, that's where I think it does a really good job. Other than what I pointed out, that date window's a little bit far to the right. I also should point out that all of these names are exactly what that original watch had, which apparently this is a French watch, and these are the French spellings of things. Some people are pointing out that Delhi is misspelled, even in French. I'm not too sure what the deal is. The original watch also had it spelled this way. I did look it up. It seems like the modern spelling of that is a corruption of the original spelling, which is DHLI. I don't know. You'd have to talk to Timex to see what they were thinking about. I imagine they said, hey, we care more about this looking like the original than looking like, than being a useful watch today. Was that a good decision? It's not going to impact me. When I travel the world, I'm probably not going to wear this watch. But I like the style of it. I also want to point at Marshall. That's the Marshall Islands, which are going to be plus 12 hours or plus 11 hours from London. Island is that's actually Iceland. In French, Iceland is spelled this with an E. I don't know why there's no E here, but maybe in 1972 it was different. It's weird, but they clearly did exactly what that original 1972 watch had. So they didn't change it. Maybe they should have. Maybe they're trying to be faithful. I'm not too sure. Let's move on from there. That bezel is what it is. If you're a heavy traveler and you care about it being accurate, this is probably not the watch. If you like period accurate reissues, well, they did a good job there. As far as telling the time, I think it's very readable. I at first thought this was a really squat, let me put it back on, a little bit too small, a really squat watch, but as I said, it's only 38 millimeter, and it fits. I think it looks really well. Let's zoom out just a little bit. I think that looks good. It's a barrel shape. I'd never heard of it being called a barrel shape watch before, but yeah, like a barrel. It's a flat top, flat bottom, curved sides. Yeah, I think that's a very attractive, fun watch. But you tell me what you think. Should they have tried to make this watch more useful now, or is it better that they were perfectly faithful to that original Timex Electric watch in 1972? But yeah, that's that. Fun little watch. I'm probably going to keep this for a while and wear it for a bit this summer. I think it's really cool. You tell me what you think. Alrighty. Thank you very much. See you next time.